And we are live. Now, give me a few seconds, everyone. We're going to put the countdown on and we'll be right back in about 30 seconds. Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Most Platform for Truth on YouTube or bar none on the internet. This is a platform for empowerment, education, and liberation. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, with our co-host, Rashid, about to be put on the screen. We'd like to thank you for giving us another minute of your day and another hour of your time. We know that the most precious commodity that anyone or any person could ever have and is a exhaustible and finite resource. So we make sure that when you give us your time, an equal or greater value for your time, and that value that we treasure given to you is wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, so that you can make up a educated guess on the matters at hand, because the news and the Western media and the alternative media is not giving you the truth. Now, as we get ready to talk on our subject today, which is the politics of war and color revolutions, I'll bring in my co-host, let him say a few things, and then we'll get right into it. So, my guy Rashid, how's it going today?
It's going great. Going great. Going great. Greetings, everyone out in the audience listening on.
So let's get right into it, man. I mean, there's so much stuff to unpack, especially in the last few days. Someone wanted me to talk on. I got a few emails and they asked me, why haven't we talked on certain domestic issues? We believe it constantly. Shows a connection with global affairs and what is taking place globally as well as locally. Because if you just focus on your local events, you'll never understand the outside world that is collapsing. And it is, I mean, everything is interconnected. And it's just not, just don't focus on your block or your city. You have to focus on the entire globe, because all of it is interconnected. And most people detach that when they teach or talk. They talk about certain issues as if it is exclusive to itself, when in reality, there's the multiple chain reactions that are underway because of domestic events, because of U.S. foreign policy. There's a lot of domestic events that are happening and falling like dominoes because of international policies of the United States and the Western world. And as I said, they're happening vice versa also. So there's a connecting point to all of these things. And what we try to do, we try to inform you of the reality of what's going on. Okay, so I want to go to something real quick. Let's go to the economic collapse blog. We'll be talking about war. We'll be talking about the situation with Iran. We'll be talking about Yemen. We'll be talking about Africa, Europe, Latin America, China. We're going to try to touch on all of these things, and they have a direct correlation with what's going on with the and pick the America and poor brown America and poor yellow America and poor red America. All these things are connected. I know you wanted to say something, Rashid, before I read the article. Go ahead, man. Say what you have to say.
As you were saying, I know somebody who said the same thing. You know, I ain't concerned about what's happening over there. I just want to be concerned with what's happening with me on Timberlane Street. And I told him, had to show him that if China stopped sending goods to America, then your supermarket was shut down.
Right.
I was listening to the guy, because I work on the waterfront on the West Coast. The head of the companies was saying that if this port closed out here, within 2 weeks, every store in America would be empty. Now, you got to think bigger than what's happening around my block. If China cuts off the spigot of goods and services, and as we said before, 93% of all of the goods in Walmart come from China. That same thing with Targets and the rest of these retail markets. Your oil, if they go to war with Iran and Iran shuts off the Hormuz straits, then you can't get no gas to drive around in. Hormuz Strait, yeah. Then you ain't got no gas to ride around in. You got to think bigger than some child in a playpen. Like the brother said, all of this stuff is interconnected. He go to war with these major producers. What do you think is going to happen to your living? Does the light have to get cut off and the water get cut off in your house to say, man, things is happening around the world that's affecting me? You got to grow up and stop thinking like a child.
You just said about the Strait of Hormuz, and yet when they pull up to the gas station now, they'll say, man, I just came to the gas station and the gas was 15 cents cheaper. And then, man, the gas is going up. They don't realize that this is international politics playing wreaking havoc right there in your domestic markets. And when you see the brutality of police forces, what they are lashing out because things are not going as planned for the empire. So you have to give a bigger picture to show people that the empire, as I often say on the show, one of the biggest mistakes that most people make, especially in Black America or urban America, they don't realize that when you look at policy, it mirrors her domestic policy, it mirrors her foreign policy. So understood, we already have StreamYard playing with the streaming right now, but it's okay. We're going to continue to go. Go ahead, Rashid.
We had a religious so-called leader in the Black community about maybe 40 years ago. And this knucklehead came up and said, we don't need no damn farms no more. And so the question should have been asked to him, are you going to stop eating? Show me how many supermarkets can stay in business without a farm.
Right. And now,
and you know what? Thinking you.
And it shows the minuscule thinking of that person, because what are we seeing today? Food prices exploding. What are we seeing today? A deficit in food and products on the grocery store, in the grocery stores, on the shelves. What are we seeing today? People complaining about once paying X amount for something this big and now paying X amount for the same product and it's this big. They don't realize that inflation is a byproduct of America's domestic policy, and it's also a byproduct of her foreign policy, because she continues to alienate the very nations
out here
that supply her with food, oil, resources, and buy her debt.
Out here in Southern California, Kroger's, Kroger's is the biggest supermarket chain across the United States. They didn't have no eggs. Some of them didn't even have milk. Whole swaths of the supermarket is empty. I remember one of my mentors years ago, we went to a supermarket chain, a little chain that was going. He pointed at me and said, because they had the shots, the shelves would not stock. He said, that's a sign of going out of business. So if that's a sign of going out of business, then what about Kroger's? It is unconscionable for them not to have any eggs. but yet and still, I'm not concerned about it.
Check this. So my daughter and I went to Walmart. I told you about this. My daughter and I went to Walmart, and she went in to shopping for. And I'm sitting in the car, and I'm catching up on the latest news. As a matter of fact, I believe I was talking to you. She comes out, and I asked her. I said, "Why didn't you get the milk?" You know, I asked her to go get some milk. She said, "Dad, you're not going to believe this. There was no milk and no ice cream in Walmart." I was like, "What?" I said, "Well, we'll just go cross town and go to the other Walmart." We went there. There was no milk, no ice cream. We went to 3 Walmarts. We went to a place that is a wholesale grocery store called what is it called? Thing escapes me right now. But we went there. They had no ice cream, no milk. And then I said, "Man, what is going on?" I told my daughter, I said, "See, this is what I was telling you." She said, "Dad, first thing I thought," she said, "stores would be mainstay products on the shelf." What we don't know that is a symptom of a declining currency. That is a symptom of transportation problems that are growing in America. Talking about from the farm to the stores, or from the warehouses to the stores, and that is a symptom of something even more deeper, which is economic strain and economic collapse. And I try to talk to my children and tell them these things so that they can be as prepared as they can be, by the grace of God, as this thing unfolds. And when people see one or two things, they don't relate them to the other things that are happening. So when we see the inner city policing of the police officers in urban America, and we see them disregard the rights or disregard the sanctity of life, that is a byproduct of American policy. This is what I'm telling you. Don't just address and say, "Oh, I got a cough, so I may have a cold." No, when you go to the doctor goes to the underlying thing and tries to go to the heart to find out what is causing the cough, what is causing the cold, so that they can treat the underlying symptom so that the thing does not metastasize. This is what we try to get over talking to this. So when you see the killings on the street, and when you see the police over policing in urban America, or when you see the protests, which is crazy. I do want to address this, a protest on the street, because we call it ace and a spade a spade. So when we see about this latest killing of this black man by the police officers, I did not know this. I learned this on the Willie D show, that the officer who tased the guy was a white guy. He didn't get suspended and he didn't get fired. I did not know that.
He
Now
didn't even get brought up for charges.
Yeah, no, he didn't. I was watching the Willie D. I only got like part, and the only reason I didn't speak on this issue is because I don't know more a lot about it, and I'm not going to speak on issues that I don't know a lot about. But Willie D was talking about that, and I caught that, and I was like, whoa. And but I caught it while I was preparing stuff for our show, so I could not just focus on that. So there may have been some little nuances in there that I missed. But I do want to say this about America and the hypocrisy of America. Now, I saw people who were big upping, and what I mean by big upping is congratulating and standing by the January 6th protesters in Washington, D.C. The ones who be good. They protested. They went to Congress, or they went um, to the congressional building, and they ransacked that building, regardless of who let them in. Listen to me good. Regardless of who let them in or who stoked the process, they did it. They went in there and they vandalized the building. They confiscated equipment and computers, and someone did lose their life. And all I can see from conservative websites were these are patriots because they were protesting against a certain issue. Now, those same people who were saying that, I call out hypocrisy, just like I called out Obama yesterday. Those same websites, those same people are now condemning the protests against the police force, and I'm talking about the police who killed that young black man, and they're condemning the protest and the right of the people. These are patriots now who are demanding an end to police brutality and over policing, and who are demanding fairer policing, who are demanding an equal say. This is just as important as the people who were protesting and demanding the system not ignore their votes. You understand? They're one and the same. But on one hand, you have a white audience who, yeah, I feel this. But on the other hand, that same audience by the police force. Okay, this is institutionalized. This is not just confined to one police area. This is institutionalized. Okay, and so we address these issues, these hot button issues. We don't shy away from any issue, even if it costs us subscribers. We don't care. We will tell you the truth regardless, and we'll stand on that. Now, we'll transition to something. Okay, I wanted to read part of an article, and I see the chat. I'll go in the chat and check out the comments in just a second. So we go over to the economics collapse blog, and the reason, again, I guess the person who asked me this question didn't see one of the shows. The reason you see me drinking a lot of water, first of all, water is good, but the second reason you see me drinking a lot is because when I got that medical condition one time that had everybody in hibernation and in confinement. When I got that one time, when I got over that, my voice started to crack, and whenever I do like shows or something, my mouth dries up a lot, and so I have to have water a lot. So that's one reason why you see me constantly drinking water. It's because of that thing. I won't say the name of it because YouTube will suspend me just on GP, general principle. But listen, we're having a lot of problems already this week. Oh, make sure that the boost is on. Give me 1 second. Matter of fact, I'll go to the boost in a second. Let me get to this. We just witnessed an economic sign that hasn't happened since the peak of the Great Depression in 1932. Now, what is going on? Remember, on the last two shows, we told you about Roosevelt, and we told you about how in the 30s, the fascist government, the fascists in the government tried to overthrow Roosevelt. And this was in a time of great economic confusion and great economic stress, where we have now entered the same conditions, but worse, because we're in the tail end of it now. And we are now watching fascist government of America do the same thing, become a dictatorship where they censor everything. They demand of other nations freedom of the press and freedom to speak. And then on these platforms, they censor you, right? The fascism of America, just like that was on display at the same time that the Great Depression took place. We're in the greatest depression right now. That was the Great Depression. We're in the greatest depression. If there was no food aid, if there was no speak up to people who are would make in the 19 look like child's play. Let's go further. Okay. Economic conditions are much worse than you are being told. Throughout the past year, prices have been rising much faster than most of our incomes have. Now, some of you who are listening, you're wondering, well, what does this have to do with color revolutions? And what does this have to do with the overthrow of government? right? I know that's what's on your mind. And what does this have to do with the politics of war? Well, what did Gerald Celente say? When you lose everything, you lose it. And when things go bad economically, they what? They take you to war. So we see what America is doing in the Ukraine. We now see that she's stoking tensions with Iran. And I told you weeks ago that there was a great big military buildup that no one was talking about in the Middle East. While everybody was focused on Ukraine, I continue to tell you that people that was close to the matter was informing us that there was a huge military buildup as if war was going to break out. Now, you're starting to see it come from behind closed doors. But these are symptoms of the greater problem of American imperialism and its decline and the collapse of American power and influence globally. Okay. All of that is going to get to this article because it's a very crucial role in war. America is fighting for her life. You don't understand this. She's fighting for her life. She deems China as the greatest threat to her position globally because of economics. She feels that if we got the same military or we're near peers of military, I'm not worried about that. But if you are near military peer with me, but yet you have more economic clout and power than me, then that is a recipe to dethrone the empire. Okay? So that is why we're seeing and hearing the whispers and the shakings of war. So listen, let's go back to this article. Economic conditions are much worse than you are being told. Throughout the past years, prices have been rising much faster than most of our incomes have. As a result, our standard of living has been rapidly declining. It has been rapidly declining. It has become increasingly difficult for U.S. households to make it from month to month. And as you will see below, more than a third of all U.S. adults are actually relying on their parents to pay at least some of their bills at this point. It's one third. Okay. More alarming, disposable income. According to Fox Business, the most recent GDP report revealed that the income that we witnessed in 2022 was the largest that has been measured since 1933. Let me say that part again. According to Fox Business, the most recent GDP report revealed that the decline in real disposable income that we witnessed in 2022 was the largest that has been measured since 1932. Now, before we read a little bit more of this article and unpack it, we need to unpack something that was said above. Okay, I want to go back to something above in this paragraph so that we can address it. I read it has become increasingly difficult for U.S. households to make it from month to month. Stop right there. Now, if we're not in a fascist or dictatorial America, the government is supposed to be what? For the people and by the people, right? America would rather engage in regime changes around the world, over policing in urban communities. See how they reflect? She's over policing around the world and she's over policing in urban communities. She would rather inject more war type weapons in the urban communities through her police forces with armored vehicles and stuff that you and around the world ignores the plight of the people here at home. It goes thousands of miles away to other people's shores and wages wars. She destabilizes governments and then she injects these puppet governments with tens of billions and even hundreds of billions of dollars to implement her plans of regime change and color revolutions so that she can rule and dominate the people of the earth. Go ahead, say something, man. Go ahead.
You hear on television that McCarthy and the new House is hollering about we need budget cuts, and what the budget cuts is going to be is your Social Security, your food stamps, your farm aid. All the we can never find. We spending too much money, but when it comes to war, they can always find money. That's one thing that they can never find enough money for waging war on somebody on some other nation.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember? I don't know if it was last year or something. Do you remember when they sent a bill, the spending bill, the war budget, and the Congress was so mad that as they passed it from one house that it wasn't enough in there, so they redid the bill and upped it by billions of dollars. While people are being evicted from their homes, while there's a plot. A massive explosion and hopelessness across America. They can use for war. That is ignoring the plight of your people and your constituency because you think that what you're doing globally means more than the security of your people. There's an old saying that American politicians haven't gotten stuck in their head. They must have let it go in one ear and out the other. But as long as I've been alive, and my mom used to drop little jewels of wisdom on me, and she still does. And she would say, charity starts at home, then it spreads abroad. Because she would see how we would interact with our friends. And then she would be telling us, listen, you got siblings over here. Don't forget about your siblings. Charity starts at home. Be as open-hearted with your brothers and sisters as you are with your friends. And American politicians don't take that to heart. They don't care about the plight of the people. And they ran on a platform of not increasing aid to Ukraine. And yet, what are they doing? Increasing aid to Ukraine.
They're liars. But going back to that economic collapse that almost happened in 2000, that did happen in 2008. What did they say? They gave the bank $7 trillion and didn't give the people one red cent. Now that shows you what they think of you. They gave them $7 trillion, but didn't lower your mortgage rate one penny. That shows, and wasn't that under Barack Obama? That shows you what he's thinking.
Under Barack Obama. Yeah.
And it was started under Little Bush. It started under Little Bush, and Barack Obama carried the while. See, it's a game. The Republicans and Democrats, they're two sides of the same coin. Heads is a quarter, and tails is a quarter. And that's how they deceive you. They got you thinking that this is a different type of a guy over there. And then they get behind the doors and laugh at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, think about this. They can all, like when it under Obama, how they manufactured all kind of reasons to bail out the very people who caused the economic crisis. Listen to me. They didn't go to jail. I want you to understand something. These people caused harm to millions of people in America and billions around the globe. These people stole trillions of dollars. And guess what? Their punishment was they were rewarded with billions more. None of them were vilified by the media, and none of them were put in jail.
It's happened under Reagan's too, right? With the house, the home savings at home crisis. But at least under Reagan, some of them went to jail. Under Obama, nobody went to jail. They just can you imagine? This guy was a bank robber. he's a bank robber who come and rob his own bank and get rewarded for it. Now the little man going there with a gun. And the SWAT come out with 6,000 policemen ready to shoot 1,000,000 bullets in him. And then if he's lucky enough to stay alive, they send him to jail for 100 billion years.
Yeah.
But the guy that owns the bank, he don't come with no firearm. He come in and steal the whole bank, and his reward is to give him enough money to go and do it again.
Yes. And there was no structural changes to the system. There was no real policy changes to what took place. The only thing they did was transfer more wealth from the poor to the rich and put the debt burden, even greater debt burden, on the poor. That's what they did.
And what was the result of it? What did they had that bailout, shut down Wall Street under Obama? What is that? What it's called?
Yes.
Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
That was the result of the people pushing back. And what did Obama do? He sent in the military and wiped out all of them people in them parks and stuff. And I didn't hear anybody on television talking about he's a dictatorial government. Look what he's doing to them poor people and protesting the wrong that America done. Not one single talking head said one word. And then it got over with, and they just let it quietly fade into the past.
And then the same people started doing the same thing, like Jamie Dimon, and all of these other guys. You see them everywhere. These are the guys who are ripping the system off, and you see them getting these speaking fees to go and talk about economics when they are the prime crooks who caused the economic meltdown in 2008 and beyond.
It made out like a fat rat in a cheese factory.
Hold on. Say what you have to say. I'm gonna black my screen for a minute. I gotta plug in that booster. I think the booster is out. So finish your thoughts.
I said they made out like a fat rat in a cheese factory. Loads of cash. But remember, they don't have to steal like that no more. These guys steal with a computer. Mm-hmm. He goes to his banker and punch in, okay, I need a $10 billion. Punch it on and hit on the button. Then here comes you got $10 billion. That's the old type of a Jesse James and John Dillinger. They don't do that. They steal.
Remember her when she was questioning really, how can you lose track of trillions of dollars? And what about the truckloads? Remember those crates, pallet loads of money that they took to Afghanistan and disappeared? So they were giving it to the people, and the pallet loads of billions of dollars just disappeared. While people are struggling here, homeowners can't pay their mortgage. People can't pay their rent. The heating bill is going up. The power bill is going up. Everything is going up.
And then you got some politician when somebody talking about lower your student. Hey, don't let them do that. How dare they take away that student loan debt? But when the guy is having billions of dollars being wasted all over the place, like you said, taking that whole shipload of money and drop it off in Afghanistan, I can see that politician say one word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they don't understand this also. And I think politicians and whoever is watching this, if you should go and talk to your politician and tell them this: you can have no viable, successful, and progressive society when your future leaders, the ones who are supposed to be focused on furthering your republic through science, engineering, mathematics, astronomy, invent stuff. If they are so focused on that, burden is on the prosperous, progressive society. If your future leaders, teachers, and guides are under a debt burden that they can't get up from under, and America's future leaders, guides, and teachers are under tremendous debt burden, not $10,000, not $50,000. Some of them are on, one person told me, and it was almost hard for me to believe, that they were under like almost $500,000 in debt from colleges. And I'm like, debt goes up that much for colleges? I didn't think it would be, in today's time, it would be maybe 100,000, but we're talking about almost $500,000. Listen.
You see,
go ahead.
It's compound interest. It's compound interest. You see, that debt rolls over, right? And you're not paying the same amount that you borrow. You're borrowing the interest, and it keeps going up. And then when they made this new bankruptcy bill, right? That's what they took out, right? The for the student loan, file bankruptcy for you. You can't do that now. But yet and still, you're doing this for the people of America. It makes you wonder, do the people on the leadership of America expect America to be going on for a few years? Or do they expect a total collapse over here? I mean, it's what they're doing, right? If you're not preparing for the leadership of America, the students or the future leaders of America, if you're not preparing a way for them, what are you preparing for? Is it a total collapse of America?
Right.
Are you grabbing the money like a bank robber and running out the bank?
In a conversation I had with Gregory Manarino, for those of you, you can go to YouTube. He has a channel called Trader's Choice. I think he has like 300,000 subscribers. He's a financial guru. Gregory Manarino and I was talking, and when he said something, my eyes lit up, and he's like, I see something. What's going on with you? I said, I've been telling people this exact same thing for the longest, and no one would hear me. And what he said was, this economic meltdown will be more destructive than if you were to unleash nuclear bombs. He said, in the aftermath of this, and I'm paraphrasing, would be like Mad Max, because you won't be able to go to the grocery stores they will have guards around a few grocery. Now listen to me good. This thing is going down. They're not telling you these things because they don't want you to understand that
the panic.
The pain that is coming and the policies that are implemented bringing about a you've seen before. This is why you see often referred to 19, because that's the club of, but those far greater. When that slush fund or whatever of dollars that has been exported overseas come back, it will be like a tsunami, and inflation will go through the roof. Now we're already competing over small amounts of goods now. When you go to the stores, think about what is going to happen when those goods shrink, because again, let's go back to what Rashid brought up at the beginning of the show. When we have 93 to 95% of all goods on the stores in Walmart and some in Target and some of these other major chains that comes from China or a subsidiary of China. When you are talking about pivoting your military to confront China in Asia, how do you think that's going to work out for the U.S. economy that is already overburdened with debt, that is already alienating its largest creditor outside of the Fed, that has to get shoes and flags, the flags that you fly being patriotic for America comes from China? How do you feel when all of that is cut off? Because China is not Russia. They're not, they go, when they go to war, they go to war. You understand? Oh, further, and let's read a little bit more of this article. We'll backtrack a little bit with one sentence. We'll say, according to Fox Business, the most recent GDP report revealed that the decline in real estate disposable income that we witnessed in 2022 was the largest that has been measured since 1932. The most troubling information in the GDP report is the precipitous drop in real disposable income, which fell over $1 trillion in 2022. For context, this is the second largest percentage drop in real disposable income ever, only behind only 1932, the worst year of the Great Depression. Now, stop right there for a minute. If all of the economic barometers are worse now, the debt burden is worse now, right? And America is being pushed out of her position because she was ascending to the top spot then. She's descending from the top spot now. So the pain, the economic pain will be worse. The hurt will be worse and more intense as the economy collapses. You understand? She knows that. So she wants to make war with every nation that she believes is a threat. Global. This is the mind, as Rashid often says, of a person who has been ruling so long and knows that their rule is up, but refuses to get off the throne and let somebody else rule. They would prepare to burn the whole kingdom down and to allow rulership of a new or a fresher leadership. This is what we're seeing with America and how she's dealing with the nations around the world. All right? So let's go a little further. All right? And we're going to play a few clips, but let's go a little further into this article. It says, just think about that for a minute. The last time this real disposable, what'd you say? The last time real disposable income declined this quickly was literally during the peak of the Great Depression. Go ahead, because we have a delay, and when I started talking, the delay had you talking over me. Go ahead.
What it is people don't understand what's happening over across the waters affects us here. When Europe says they don't want no Russian gas, right? See, just think of a table. The world market of gas and oil is only a certain amount of that's going out. Now, when Europe say we're not going to accept no Russian gas, then the other one, Russia starts sending to them, it shrinks the Western pool of gas and oil. And gas and oil runs your ships, runs your trains, and runs your trucks. You see? When this economic deal is going on, it everything that you do. Tell me how many trucks can go to the supermarket, to the farm, if they ain't got no diesel to supply your supermarket. You got to think of things like that. Everything affects something else. It's like a well-armed machine. You drive your car down the street, and if the alternator is pulled out, then how fast is your car going? Or if the battery is taken away. This is what's taking place. You're not going anywhere. You're going to be sitting there. And this is what we're trying to show you, that everything is interconnected. And by the empire going hog mad and seeing that somebody else is taking over her rule, she's threatening thermonuclear war for everybody. And the people that's at the leadership, evidently they said, I don't care.
And it's all in this mad dash to try to project power in the position of the global hegemon. As a matter of fact, since we're on this, let us go up to something. Let me see if I can find that clip that we played before. It is an apt clip for what is going on right now when it's to America. And it deals with China, it deals with Russia, and it deals with any other nation, but specifically right now, I think it's talking about China, but it's talking about how America has been ruling so long, she won't tolerate an equal power.
After
Listen,
the Cold War, the United
listen.
States, it put together a security strategy, a security document, very openly saying that its security was dependent on hegemony. So as long as the US was dominant, hegemonic on a global scale, this would be the foundation for security. So any dispersal of power which reduces the dominance of the US will be seen as a threat. Now, again, before you had US and China, they were believed to be in this peaceful interdependence. The problem was it was never sustainable. It was supposed to be interdependence between, the dominant and the weaker party. But you saw over time that China was producing and saving while the United States was consuming and borrowing. So as a result, China was accruing more and more industrial power, more and more advanced technology, and this ungodly amount of foreign reserves. Meanwhile, we saw the US was losing a lot of productive power and sinking further into debt. So this was unsustainable in many ways. And at some point, this partnership had to collapse because the US became worried about the growing strength of China, as it feared that China might dethrone the United States, while China became more worried that the United States would then turn to economic and military means to prevent its growth. And this is, at this point, you really needed an agreement where the two big countries could come together and say, listen, the new security system really has to be based on a multipolar format. We can't have this, maintain this unipolar moment of based on US dominance when it's no longer reflected in reality. And again, the United States, it didn't show any interest in this, which is why China began to pursue, technological sovereignty by decoupling from the United States, build its own transportation corridors with this Belt and Road initiatives, develop this financial architecture, new one decoupled from the US with new payment systems and banks and new trading currencies. And again, the main reason was China was never offered an equal position, as we saw, for example, with the United States blocking Chinese efforts to get, for example, a greater role within the IMF.
So do you see how as long as the security thing that America put together, as long as she was the dominant power, she said she can go along with that and we can have global security. But if she loses her position, if she starts losing her position, she's not going to go along with that. She doesn't want a peer, an equal peer, a near equal peer, or multiple nations together to be able to rival her. As a matter of fact, it is stated in American policy to not allow a peer or a rising power or a combination of nations to be able to rival American power. That is the doctrine of America. That is the doctrine. So this is nothing that is far-fetched. And I want you to understand something. This came RT, and it was called Clash with China Around the Corner, top U.S. general. And in this article, it says Beijing could move on Taiwan in 2025. Mike Minahan has claimed in a memo obtained by NBC. Stop right there. Now, I want you to see the insanity of American policy. 90+% of the population of the planet recognizes that Taiwan, which is called Chinese Taipei, is a inherent part of China. America put that in her doctrine when she went to China to tell China, listen, we got a deal for you. If you manufacture goods for us for cheap, then that you can invest that money and you can lift people and do this and do that. So they agreed on a one China policy, which recognizes Chinese sovereignty over Taiwan. So even if China were to go into Taiwan, how do you think America would feel if China parked her warships in the Gulf of Mexico, right? And then there was a protest that took place in, say, Florida, and the protests were overrunning the city, and then America deployed her National Guard, but then China sent her warships there to intervene. So it is the extreme reverse. China. So let's go over this. U.S. Air Force commander warned his subordinates that they should brace for war with China over Taiwan in just 2 years, NBC reported on Saturday, citing internal documents. In a memo obtained by the outlet and confirmed by the U.S. officials, General Mike Minahan, the head of Air Mobility Command, said that as both the U.S. and Taiwan will be distracted by their presidential elections in 2024, Beijing will be able to make a move against the self-governed island. I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Now stop right there. Now let's go to something else, because this is connected to that article, which is connected to the subject that we're on. So in another article that was published on RT, and I believe what date was this article that I just read published? This article that I just read was published January 28th. This article that I'm about to read was published January 24th. Okay. And it says, the title of it is U.S. Not Ready to Fight China, according to a study. And this is what it says. The Pentagon ran out of crucial missiles in the first week of a simulated clash for Taiwan. The U.S. does not have enough stockpiles of munitions to rotation with China. A U.S. in 18, now they've just conducted a few more, in 18 war games, the United States went head to head with China, and they went head to head with China with NATO allies. And in all 18 war games, the Chinese destroyed them or completely beat them on the battlefield. And the only war game where it lasted a little longer is when America used hypothetical weapons, which they were trying to develop for the future. And China still beat them within weeks and months on the battlefield. 18 war games by these institutions and by the Pentagon. Now they're talking about more war games that they saw. Now, they admitted this. The U.S. does not have enough stockpiles of munitions or the industrial capacity to replenish them for a major military confrontation with China. And why would you get in a conflict with them? When China has the high ground, China, look, just think about this for 1 second. I'm gonna let you chime in a second, Rashid. They are at their wits' end capacity trying to supply weapons to Ukraine. They are digging in their own weapon stockpiles to try to supply weapons to Ukraine, and everything they send over there, Russia, because in their military industrial complex. Well, Russia's industrial complex and manufacturing capacity tells the Chinese manufacturing military industrial capacity. And how can you replenish materials when you don't manufacture anything, or you don't have the manufacturing capacity to do so? So if you were to get into a war with China, first of all, your debt would be called in. Second of all, China could revalue its currency in gold. This right here is tantamount to dropping nuclear bombs on the financial system that is run by America globally. China could put an embargo on America and then threaten, as America threatens, counter sanctions to third parties who may get this stuff and transfer it to America. Now, this war, without manufacturing capacity to replenish your lost weaponry and arms, China has a 1.5 billion people. You have 300 and some million. Now you tell me how that works out when you're already in debt and you're deficit spending and you're hoping to buy or for China to buy more debt. This, for any rational or sane person, the policies of America are lunatic policies. Say the Go ahead.
Oh, it froze you up right there. It's exactly what I was, what you just said at the end. She's already losing what she's got against Ukraine. The European armoring are depleted. They can't send any more shells and stuff. And Russia, what they say that they done gave everything they can to Ukraine, and she's borrowing about 6,000 armor shells a day, while Russia shooting off 60 is a 10-to-1 ratio.
60,000.
But yet and still, yeah, but yet and still, you gonna go to war with these people who got such a advantage over you. It is insane. But that don't mean that the empire ain't gonna stop. And then she like you said, the main thing of it is also an economic bomb. See, people don't understand. Let China stop sending goods. Then nothing, you can't go to no supermarket because there's no supermarket to sell anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That
the ramifications of that
is affecting you. With Russia, Russia is big with the oil. Iran is big with the oil. China got all of the manufacturing goods to sell the world, and you gonna go to war with both of them. All they're gonna do is just stop sending you anything. Now, and just think of it. Would you, if somebody was beating at your door with a meat cleaver, are you gonna send support to him to his house?
And think about this. The knock-on effect, we got to go back to that article, the economic article, and the knock-on effect of this. You brought a point up, and it triggered what I wanted to say earlier. Now, China can lose X amount of ships, warplanes, or whatever. They can replenish them like this. Their manufacturing capacity is unmatched on the planet Earth. Now, as Rashid said,
unrivaled.
You go to war with China. China embargoes you, no goods come here. Guess what that is? Not only do you not have goods, but guess what happens after that? The stores that you used to go to for the goods have to close down. So now you're seeing a domino effect in the economy suffering and hemorrhaging from this war. Now, guess what happens after that? The employees who were once employed at those stores are out of work. So now you got employees who are looking for work, but there's no work. So I think about, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to feed my children? How am I going to pay my insurance? Not home. Because in the mind of those people, and then you go to war with China, and while these millionaires, these billionaires are sitting eating pretty, now you got the poor in the middle class against the rich class. And then there's a clash at home while there's a clash abroad. And hold on one second. And as Rashid brought to your attention a few days ago, that means the trucks stop running because there's a shortage in fuel. That means the banks are in trouble because the banks can't recoup their loans that they made out. So now they have to close branches, which means we have truckers without jobs, bankers without jobs, and it goes down the line. And the economic dominoes continue to fall in a nation that is already overburdened with debt. How do you think that pays off? At the same time, trying to manufacture consent with our own populace to go to war with Iran, China, Venezuela, Russia, and India, and everybody else. You make that make sense. Go ahead.
The ruling class, they're not in the country. They got them an island somewhere where they gonna plan on riding this thing out, and you catch the head. And another thing, once all what Brother Rashid was saying about all of these domino effects, the police ain't gonna be there. The police gonna be trying to take care of their own family. They're gonna be at their own house. Civil society breaks down. This is what we're telling you is coming. A hint to the wise is sufficient, and you should be able to see what the domino effects. Boom, 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 boom. You know, they line up those dominoes. They hit one domino, and all of them fall. And this is what's taking place. This is a collapsing of the American society, and it seems like these people just don't care. They don't care that it happened. Like you said, you know, if it happened, hell, I'm gonna get on my jet and the South Pacific on some island down there, and I'm gonna live fat like a fat rack in a cheese factory, while everybody else devolve into, like Gregor Manarino said, in the Mad Max society.
So I'm telling you, this thing is, and the contempt. I don't think people understand the contempt that the government has for them, because while everything is devolving and coming apart, they continue to throw good money after bad money. They continue to try to destabilize different regions of the world with color revolutions and try to steal off their resources. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at this short clip here.
Somalia, one of the poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa, has become the latest focus of American military expansion on the continent. Washington says by growing its U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, it will protect Africans.
We are aligning our global counter-terrorism efforts with where the threat to Americans is most acute. Al-Shabaab in Somalia simply has to be among our highest priorities on that score.
But America's military mission, so it says, is not so military after all.
This is a repositioning of forces that are already in the area to continue an advise and assist and training mission, with the purpose of enabling a more effective fight against Al-Shabaab.
AFRICOM was established in 2007 and from the start was not really welcomed on the continent.
We've got a big image problem down there. Public opinion is really against getting into bed with the US. They just don't trust the US.
And things haven't really changed. People on the continent still don't like America's presence.
The Americans are back because they see an advantage to take over the Romanian resources and continue to enrich themselves. We have little to no chance of getting help to stop them from taking our resources. They are posing as if they are helping us, but they have their own agenda and the benefits they get in return. They are benefiting from whatever they are doing in Africa. There is something they want.
I don't find them intimidating until they try to manipulate our resources and what we have and what we've fought so hard to gain, and then they try to take it as their own and, you know, take it away from us because we worked really hard to be where we are, to get where we are.
Their presence is not helping us. As you can see, many people are suffering, and prices for everything are increasing. We are still facing a high unemployment rate. For me, their presence is not helping. They might come to Africa with an idea to help, but they are not helping, and I don't see any difference or changes. But still, the sad truth is there is no change, and people are suffering and facing a lot of difficulties.
It's not surprising that Africans aren't jumping up and down. Civilian casualties from American airstrikes have steadily climbed, as have violations of international law. Amnesty International says American operations in the East African nation of Somalia have killed civilians, despite AFRICOM's denials.
This first regular public report acknowledging the United States Africa Command's role in civilian casualties is a welcome glimmer of transparency in more than a decade of deadly military operations that until now have been shrouded in secrecy.
And then there's the lack of assistance for West Africa and the Sahel.
So the United States is not leading there by any means, but we're trying to support our partners. Our contributions are pretty small, some training, some equipping, helping with some logistics, helping with some intelligence and some ISR. That's what we're doing there to help our partners. The US is not in the lead in West Africa.
What's more, America has proven it's unable to fight terrorism on the continent.
Despite all of our best efforts, this terrorism continues to spread. The spread of terrorism has continued relatively unabated.
Not to forget the history of American military presence elsewhere in the world, like in the Middle East, for example, where anti-American sentiment runs high and US operations have devastated countries. It's really no surprise then that Africa isn't beating its drums at the latest US endeavors.
She's talking about fighting terror. Now, mind you, I want to go back to some, and then I'm going to play this in conjunction with what I just played. When we look at America, she knows the terrorist organizations, they pop up out of nowhere. She knows every member, the hierarchy of it, the leadership of it. Now, mind you, they never do anything to prevent them from coming into existence, even though they know the family tree, the family history, who's related to what, how they got their arms, and nobody ever sits down and think, well, how do they know all this, and why didn't they act before this took place, and who benefits from them, these terrorist organizations and their influx into these regions that are minerally resource rich or on strategic waterways or trade routes. Nobody sit and think about it. So now she's talking about fighting terror in Africa, right? But what she's giving in America is terror. She's not fighting this type of terror right here.
That's the up. Damn, I didn't do anything. Hey, I didn't turn your ass around. All right. On the ground. Hey, you don't do that, okay? Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Okay. Tase your ass. Tase you. Get on the ground. One. Now. Tasing. All right. Okay. Turn your bitch ass around. Break your shit. Okay, dude. Damn. Turn the around. Don't lay down. Oh, I am on the ground. Put your hand on your stomach. I got you. Okay. Okay. Get the foot back. Stop. I'm not doing it. Please. Wipe you. Hey. Give me your hand. Give me your hand. You might get sprayed again. Hey. Hey, Mike. Hey, bro. Watch out. Watch out. Give me your hand. Mom. Hey. Give me your hands. Give me. Okay. All right. Give me your fucking hands. Give me your hands. All right. Okay. All right. Huh? Hey, Mike, give me your hands, bro. Hey. Give me your hands. Watch out. Spray your ass again. Hey, give me your hands, bro. Watch out. Spray. Give me your hands, bro. Oh, hey, I'm a sissy guy. Give me your hands. Watch out. I'm going to baton the out you. Hit the hands. Watch out. Watch out. Give the hands. Give us your hands. Give us your hands. Same location. Ross and Kelsey, okay? Ross and Kelsey. What's it? Give me your hand.
Halfway around the world, but you can't fight terror within your own border, in their own communities. How they victimize that, and that I heard that one of the reasons for the stop, and I don't know how true this is, but like I said, I heard part of it from Willie D's podcast or whatever, and he has a real good podcast. Willie D used to be a rapper, internationally known rapper. He has a really good podcast, and he doesn't do the curse and stuff like that. If you want, he updates you on a lot of stuff. But, and I believe they said one of the guys that knew who the guy was because the guy is dating his ex-girlfriend. So all of this transpired over foolishness, terrorism. Terrorism at home.
It's the American way of doing business. That's all that is. At least we're getting the terror here in America, but at least they're not having drones fly through your neighborhood and blow up your house with a Hellfire missile. But what is the difference between these guys and the famous Gestapo of the Nazis of World War II? No different. Do the same stuff. Going around and terrorizing people. I dole out punishment on you, right? They supposed to be arrest you, and the judge is the one that say whether you get your what your punishment was. They doling out punishment to this poor brother on the streets, and if there's a God in heaven, these so-called policemen should go to jail and let some of the guys on the yard do the same thing to them. Then they see how they would like it. I know they get put in protective custody, but somebody need to be on the yard and do the same thing. You sow what you reap. This is the reason why America is in the position she's in.
International.
That's right. You sow what you reap.
You keep going in and out. You're going in and out, and they're freezing your stream a little bit every now and then as you're talking. So hold on with your thought for a second. Let's go a little further, and let's talk about the situation at hand now. While telling you that she's trying to stop terror, I want you to understand something. The month of January, and no month in particular, but specifically January, does not have 40 days in it. Am I right? 30 month goals, right? And yet America has this clip here says 40 mass shootings, but as I was uploading it, there were 2 or 3 of them last night. So we have to add that to this. But I just want you to listen. How can you stop terror abroad with terroristic policies at home and abroad? You make that make sense. So I want you to listen to this.
Devastation in yet another American community. In the state of California, a death toll of 19 from a series of mass shootings in less than 3 days last week. But that bloodshed is not unusual in a country where mass shootings are almost a daily occurrence. The US Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center has been examining these mass attacks in a bid to identify warning signs. It's just released new data from the analysis of 173 attacks where 3 or more people were harmed over a 5-year period from 2016 to 2020.
By far, grievances were the top motive for these attacks. These were attackers retaliating for some sort of perceived wrongs that may have been related to either personal issues, domestic situations with partners, as well as workplace issues. But if you look at the top 3, sort of 75% of attacks were carried out, mostly grievances, but also then you see ideologically motivated attacks.
The report found that more than 3/4 of all attacks involved firearms, and over 80% of them resulted in at least 1 death. But when weapons other than guns were used, people died in fewer than 50% of attacks. The report recommends more state-level red flag laws, rules that allow a court to remove guns from someone presenting a risk, yet it does not specifically call for widespread gun reform.
But the Biden administration is. President Biden has urged Congress to act quickly to pass a pair of bills which seek to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, as well as raising the purchasing age to 21.
Vice President Kamala Harris repeated those calls to Congress as she visited a makeshift memorial for the victims of the Monterey Park shooting.
I don't want to see her and hear what she has to say. I don't even want to hear her or see her. But mind you, all of this is going on within America's own borders. Charity starts at home, then it spreads abroad. How can you stop terror abroad when you are the main instigator of this terror? And I'm talking about abroad and at home. You are the main instigator of this terror, and you're telling the people that you're trying to stop terror. Now, you're saying, don't follow my example, follow my advice. That's not how people usually work. If they see you doing certain things, if you are a steward of someone and they see you stealing, guess what they're going to start doing? Stealing. If they see you smoking drugs, they're going to smoke drugs. If people are getting over, okay? This is what Americans don't realize. They are putting their world, their economic, their political system in a fire, and everything is burning up. Now, as we played that clip about Africa and America, over in Mogadishu, over in Somalia, America was forced to leave Somalia. Then she came back under false pretenses, and she's been over there ever since. And she went back over there because she suffered an embarrassment when she was caught herself fighting, and then those people drug those bodies, those military bodies, through the streets, beating them with shoes and stuff. America never forgot that. Just like she went after Gaddafi when Gaddafi embarrassed America and made them remove their military bases and all of their influence out of Libya. And now she's back in Libya. But here is something to show you the connection of these dots. So I'm trying to do a lot, and I'm trying to get the economics, and I'm trying to connect this stuff. Did you know, and I know you didn't, so you're going to hear it first here. Did you know that a Russian military helicopter was flying in Somalia, right? At the behest of people in Somalia. And unknown people tried to down the helicopter, right? Lashing out because you're losing in Ukraine. So you inflict something on Russia. He's not too concerned about if the other one gets something to eat. That is the mind of a child. It is not a mature way of thinking. And this is what is getting the U.S. in more and more trouble, because they have childish thoughts and they just throw anything up against the wall to see if it will stick. Well, let's go a little further. Okay, and then I'll bring Rashid. I see him back in the booth.
The U.S. has been training the Ukrainian military for years, according to former State Secretary and CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who says that even he visited Ukraine multiple times during his term as Washington's spy chief.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces have been trained by the United States for an awfully long time. When I was a CIA director, I was in Southeast Ukraine on more than one occasion. We were helping them with special operating forces stuff.
Mike Pompeo says that the current successes of Ukraine can be attributed to the U.S. and in a 2020 statement to National Public Radio said that America doesn't care about Ukraine. Meanwhile, the former U.S. Secretary of State also said that Americans don't even know where Ukraine is on a map. Executive Vice President of the Eurasia Center, Earl Rasmussen, says Washington provoked the Russian special military operation as it has been involved in Ukrainian affairs for years.
The U.S. have been probably the primary instigators of, and I would say behind provoking this this special military operation that's occurring. We were behind the coup in 2014, most likely. We were behind very suspiciously have our hands potentially in the Nord Stream explosions. And we've been in Ukraine for quite a while. I would say even before 2014, we've been in Ukraine. Both with modifications to the biolaboratory facilities, as well as arming Ukraine and training their forces. And I think the area has increased significantly in 2014 and beyond. I mean, Mr. Pompeo even alluded to 6 years, but I would say we've been there much longer than that.
So, you see, I'm Rashid back to the stream. So, what is your thoughts on that? It's openly. This is crazy. They openly admit what they do, and then they go right in the media and pretend like they didn't say it, and that they have nothing but a just cause to fight, and that they are actually really after the security of Ukraine.
What does this remind you of in folklore? As you used to always call it, Nosferatu, the Prince of Darkness, right? A bloodsucker who goes around sucking the lifeblood out of everybody for his own evil purposes. the man of sin. The scriptures tell you that. He shall be revealed. He's into every trouble all around the world. You can lay it at his doorstep.
Yeah. Yes,
That's
sir.
all he is.
And I want
the man of
go ahead.
The man of sin. That's all you could. That's after watching his action around the world. All you can call is the man of sin.
Right. And what is crazy about it is that they openly tell you what they've done, and then they get back, and when you confront them on, oh, how dare you? We would not do such and such, and they openly tell you this right in the media, and the people are so brainwashed as to just they don't look at what was said and what was done a while back. They just follow what is said to them. If it is America in a great, and Pompeo was the CIA director from 2017 to 2018. And you remember he became Secretary of State too. So this is a revolving door situation with this, and he has stuff on the of these corporations. I go back to some. I was looking down. I want to go back to something we talked about. The destabilization of Africa. And we're talking about the destabilization of Russia and China and all of these other nations. Now, under whose watch was AFRICOM? AFRI-COM was established. AFRICOM. It was established under, guess who? Barack Obama. AFRICOM became a force in Africa under Obama. They couldn't really cement it there under his predecessors because it would look like it was colonialism. So what they did, they waited till they got Obama into office, and they went and implemented the plans that they had already planned before Obama ever ran in politics. And they figured that if they could get this going, they could cement American rule in Africa and could continue to destabilize African nations and also keep an eye on China. And whenever China got too big, they could destabilize the countries in Africa that does big trading with China. And they can keep an eye on the Middle East and prevent Russia from getting African allies. This is all why the main report Muammar Gaddafi to Western influence and military and economic power under Obama. Let us not forget that. Okay, so when you want to give him credit for that too. Don't leave that out. And AFRICOM has been ravaging Africa ever since it has been cemented on the continent. And you heard the people saying they don't want them there. But just so many things are going on so rapidly. And we're trying to, let's get back to this article. Go ahead, say what you have to say, but I got to get back to this economic article as we tie these things in.
Wants America in their country? Name us, other than the Nazis in Ukraine, but who around the world want America to come in with a democracy? And when he come in with his democracy, your society is ruined.
And never leaves. Never leaves.
Think about the Ukrainians. Still in Japan? The Ukrainians are getting the democracy right now.
Yeah. So he never leaves. And I also want to point out to this. This is not only just for geopolitical military positioning, but this is also desperation by the empire, because now every nation that they go, first things that they do is steal the gold. They stole it in Libya. They tried to steal it in Syria. And the first thing they did when they implemented forces, went into Ukraine and stole Ukrainians' holdings of gold. It's no coincidence. See, all of this political and geopolitical military posturing has a lot to do with the economics, the empire, the Western world. They need something to hold on to. They have debts that must be redeemed in gold. They have some debts that must be redeemed in gold, and they will go after any and everybody gold that they can so that they won't be presented before the world as a deadbeat. You understand? They would justify any war.
Which they are, because they never pay their bills.
They never pay the bills. What they do?
You let me
deficit spend.
You let me go and see how far we go, or anybody that's on this podcast. Anybody see how far we would get by never paying our debts. Oh, it's not another credit card. Well, what about that credit card? Oh, what about this one? Well, that don't work, but what about this one? That's what America's doing. Constantly putting on the credit card.
She calls it deficit spending. You know, that's what she projects, and she's so about it. She goes and grabs whatever light of the future and right. Let's go a little bit further into this clip here. This article. The last real disposable income decline this quickly was literally during the peak of the Great Depression. And as our incomes get squeezed tighter and tighter, more Americans are starting to fall behind on their bills. For example, the proportion of subprime auto borrowers that are at least 60 days behind on their payments have just surged to the highest level that we've seen since what? 2008. Now let's go further. In December, the percentage of subprime auto borrowers who were at least 60 days late on their bills climbed to 5.67%, a major increase from a 7-year low of 2.58% in April 2021, according to Fitch Ratings. It marks the steepest rate of Americans struggling to make their car payments since 2008's financial crisis. We are already beginning to witness the largest tsunami of repossessions that we have seen since the Great Recession. And it is only going to get worse. Recession is going to get. And what must it be that they don't like to put together? A Great Depression. Right? This is what it must be now. But let's go further. One woman in San Antonio that knows that her vehicle could be repossessed at any time has decided that hiding it is the best strategy for now. Stop right there. You know what? Before one of my shows, I had my mom with me one day. I think it was my mom, me, my mom, and my daughter. I think it was. And I went to this was years ago. I went to pay the last payment on my car. And I'm getting ready. They give me my title and the whole title or whatever. I'm getting ready to go out the store, and then the guy said, hold on 1 second before you leave. I got to get my mechanics out there. Now this is on a reputable lot. I got to get my mechanics out there to move the device, I think they call them tablets or something like that, on the car. I said, huh? And so as he went to tell the guy that the car was paid, he came back in and I asked him what it was. He said, oh, that is to let us know where the car is at all times. So even if she hides her car, they find out where it's at. Go ahead, Rashid, before I read it.
In the 90s, didn't Tony Braxton, the singer, wasn't she doing the same thing, hiding in Mercedes-Benz?
Right. But technology now, they put these things on all the cars. If you put, that's why you see the man, and That's how they do it. They have these little devices on your car now. But let's go further. It says, for the best long-term strategy, take San Antonio native Zia Zakar, I think that's her name, who is currently trying to negotiate with her lender so her 2013 Honda Fit won't get repossessed. In the meantime, she's hiding it. The 53-year-old who is currently in school for her bachelor's in information technology and raking up massive student loans for an education she should have had some 35 years ago, splits the monthly bill for the car about $178 with her roommate. But then the roommate lost his job, and with prices for groceries and everyday items increasing, there just wasn't enough for the car payment. Zokar is trying to make extra money with odd jobs like contract secretarial work and participation in medical studies, but it often feels hopeless, she said. Our money doesn't go as far as it used to go, she said. I don't see prices going down, so the only relief I see is when I get my degree. That's what she's banking on. But she doesn't understand that the field of the empire's system, empire republic, is in dire straits. Are you racking up all of this debt? You're hoping that when you get out, you can get a job in that field when that field may not exist when you get out of school. So
you got a lot of people with degrees that's unemployed. She can't see that.
Yes. I saw a documentary where this guy, he had like the black guy, he had like 4 degrees. He had a master's and he had a bachelor. He had even a degree, and he was an honor student. I think he graduated the head of his class at Harvard. And the guy's was living on Skid Row, which is crazy.
And the further we get down this economic collapse, you're gonna see more and more of them doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody, the way America's going, everybody gonna be out of work.
Yeah, you better believe that. And it says this. Sadly, most of the country is just barely scraping by at this junction. Now stop right there, because I have to put some quotation marks behind it with a sentence in the quotation marks, because it says sadly most of the country, and the hypocrisy and contempt of the towards its people at such a time for the people to call for a new government miles away, people within her own borders are barely scraping by. How can a government talk about national security? This is something that I want to bring home to people. They often talk about, well, we need to give this bill to the Pentagon for national security. Security, just like charity, starts at home. If you don't consolidate and secure the home front and try to secure fronts thousands of miles away, you leave your underbelly exposed. And if you leave your underbelly exposed, then you can have a war at home. You can have tragedy here at home while trying to defend thousands of miles away. So the security of America, the security of her nation rests within her borders, not thousands of miles away. Then you say you came up with nuclear weapons so that no nation would dare attack you? Well, then what the hell do you need thousands of bases across the world for? Either you need no nuclear weapons or you don't need the bases. But the two cannot exist at the same, especially when both of them are robbing the very people who you claim to want to secure and protect of a viable life, viable education, healthcare, which is not defense, it's offensive in every way possible. takes up the majority of your taxes. It's crazy. But yet they'll tell you that the Social Security people are burdened to the system when they are the ones who paid into the Social Security. But yet the Pentagon continues to get hundreds of billions of dollars, and then they get these at night spending bills that are not attached to the officially recognized spending bill, which will give them extra 50 billion and 100 billion and 200 billion more in spending to conduct wars and color revolutions and government overthrows abroad, when we're sitting in a very precarious situation and on shaky ground in America's own border. Say what you have to say, Rashid, then I'm gonna read more of this article.
What it is you said 100 billion or 200 billion or 300. It's just like pulling stuff out of thin air. This is also the reason why the empire is going down. The other countries see this. Mexico, I can't pull up $100 billion out of thin air. Brazil, I can't pull up $100 billion out of thin air. Russia can't pull up 100. See, the other people have gotten on to this scheme that America pulled off with Nixon and Henry Kissinger. This world reserve currency, they just pulling money out of thin air. His money really is not worth anything. Nothing. And the rest of the world sees this. And what, like you said, with yesterday with Vladimir Putin, we allowed them to steal their money. Like the rest of the people say, well, if he can steal Russia's money, well, he can steal our money. And so what the rest of them are saying is, I don't want to be a part of that no more. And if nobody accepts her dollars, the people don't understand. She has nothing. She don't manufacture anything. The main thing with America got is the service. Flipping. And if you ain't got no resources, you can't even flip the burgers. Because you ain't got they don't understand the stuff that's being brought into this country. She manufactures nothing. I mean, she got a little bit of stuff to go out, but the main thing is bringing stuff in. And the rest of the world go along with that, she's fine. But if the rest of the world say that we putting a stop to that stuff, time out, she has no reserves or nothing. She is. Don't fall into that scheme that she's the richest country on the planet. She actually is the poorest. The other people have to actually, like in Africa and Asia and all, they have the resources. They have the gold, the cobalt, the stuff that they can bring in. Russia has the grain, and America don't have anything. If she don't have anything, then what makes her rich? Because I said so. I'm rich because I said I'm rich. So when other countries call me to the carpet of that, okay, if you rich, let's see what you produce. Well, actually, I don't produce anything. I don't have anything. I have no resources. Only thing that I produce is weapons of war. And those ain't even working right. Right? Are you there? I think it froze you because you be saying that I be freezing, but when you be freezing too.
I know both of us freeze on the screen. I see it. I see it when they freeze when we're frozen on the screen. I see it.
At least they throw me out of the whole show. They don't throw you out of the whole show. At least 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of the show, they kick me off the air altogether.
Yeah,
but yeah, as
but
we're
on
saying,
this weapons,
go ahead.
On this weapons thing, I just want you to see how she values weapon sales. She values destabilization programs. She values exercising military and political and economic might over everything. and she has contempt for her own people. Think about this. Just listen to this right here.
The announcement that Western tanks are headed to Ukraine had the defense contractor Lockheed Martin all set and ready to roll. Lockheed's stock is all over the battlefield with their mobile artillery rocket systems, their Javelin missiles, and their Patriot air defense systems all making an appearance.
Lockheed Martin is going to be ramping production on F-16s in Greenville, South Carolina to get to the place where we will be able to backfill pretty capably any countries that choose to do third-party transfers to help with the current conflict.
U.S. State Department data says that weapons manufacturers made huge profits in 2022. The Ukraine conflict was a huge game changer, with a 49% boost in profits over 2021, and new contracts are currently in the pipeline. Now, to oversee new arms deals, the House and Senate Armed Services Committee has appointed 8 commissioners to review Biden's foreign policy. Not surprisingly, they came straight from the defense contractors. The Pentagon can't even keep track of all the billions of dollars poured into it, consistently failing multiple audits. The White House wants to keep the war in Ukraine on a roll, and military corporations have no objections. The Ukrainian embassy has even hosted military corporations as guests of honor.
It's known forever that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. The entire mainstream media in the West knew that up until February 24th of last year, and then they conveniently forgot that particular thing when they began praising the plucky democracy in Ukraine and how they're fighting for our values. Well, it's certainly widely known that the U.S. military contractors, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and the others have made record profits out of the Ukraine war. But the entire system is corrupt. You have a revolving door between government officials and so-called private sector defense contracting firms and their executives. You put in your time in government, and then when you're out, you get a very, very well-paid job in one of these companies, and that's what drives the profit. So these companies are not driven by patriotism or even any concern whatsoever to the real U.S. national interest. They're driven by deep, deep corruption in the U.S. government and in these companies that are tied to the U.S. government to the detriment of all Americans who are forced to pay for them.
I was thinking about that, what was just being played.
There we go. You see how it stopped now? This is StreamYard and YouTube now. They've taken over the dashboard. I guess we've been talking too much, and we've been giving out a little bit too much information and making people think too much. And you know, in America and in the Western world, if you provoke thought, deep thought, you become an enemy to the system and an enemy to the state.
I was thinking about that with what he was just saying on the RT. You know, they've been banned too. Doesn't the Christian Bible say that the God would come at the end of time and get rid of those who delight themselves in making war? Right?
Yes, sir.
With all these war, that's all. America is a country of war makers. Doesn't that tell you it's why this stuff is going around the world, and why it's happening? Because it looks like somebody is about to put an end to her war making. She loves to start trouble. She loves to commit war. her and her little brother over in the Middle East, who would sit up, people would sit on the hills while they shoot innocent men and women walking around in a circle protesting and laughing and giggling. It looks like they should call him, his real name should be the Prince of Darkness.
Well, or the bloodshed. So on that note, we're about to go off. We thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. We're your hosts, Rashid and Rashid. In closing, Rashid, what do you have to say to our viewers?
Once again, stay tuned. It's a bumpy ride. Everything is coming down right now. That's showing for the man that got his eyes open to see what's coming upon America.
Yes. And on that note, as I always say, we hope that we have given you an equal or greater value for your time, which is the most valued commodity in existence. Because once it's gone, you can't get it back. So we hope that we have given you enough information that can help you understand or see more things. And also hit the like button, share this video, tell others about it. You can check us out on Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, Odyssey, and Rumble. And like I said, just support the movement. We're trying to get the truth out. What's right coming up soon. I would always love you best, but above all things, stay. Your baby boy loves you more than life. We out.